So your first step is going to be to go to our Google Classroom. You'll scroll down to the top assignment here that says turn in final character sketch here. You'll click on it and make sure that you've actually turned this into me before you do anything else. So obviously this is going to look very different to me because I am like the teacher facing version. So you'll find your assignment that you turned in. You'll click on it. And then you should get this option right here that says download. So it's like a little arrow pointing down into an open box. And when you hover your mouse over it, it should say download. So you're going to click on that. You have a new tab that opens just for a second, and then you should have this popping up in the bottom. I want you to notice that the name of the file, so this is important, you'll need this in order to find your file, is the same as the name of the assignment. So all you'll need to do is remember that it says turn in final character sketch, and that's all you'll need to search. So then I'm going to go back over to my little finder here, and so it should look like this when you pull it up. And if you start typing in turn in final, you'll see I have actually downloaded this one 3 times, but you should only have one. And what you'll do is you'll click on it so it's highlighted, but you're not double clicking on it, so you're just clicking on it one time so it gets highlighted. And then you're going to drag it onto your desktop. So if I click and I hold the name, you'll see that you get this little kind of plus sign here. I'm just going to drop it right there. Then you can go back to your your Spotlight search, and you'll type in Photoshop. Mine's going to look a little bit different because I have a newer version on my home computer, but basically the same. Dun, dun, dun. Then once this is fully done loading, you'll go to File, Open, and right here you'll see kind of like a list of options here. So because you drug it onto your desktop, that's where you'll find it. So this is all of my wonderful files that are forever living on my desktop. I'm going to select my character design sketch here. So you see I have like a number of them already saved on here. You should only have one. And I'm just going to double click on it and click open. So then it's opening your photograph of your sketch right here in Photoshop. So first you'll see that it's actually not the right orientation because it goes up and down versus side to side. So if that's the case for yours, if it's already upright and how exactly you want it to be, you can skip this step. But if it's like looking like how mine looks, in order to rotate, you're going to go up to Image, so right here, and you will see Image Rotation. And I want to flip mine counterclockwise because it goes in the opposite direction of the way a clock goes. 90 degrees means that it kind of brings it, if we're talking in clock terms, it'll bring it from the noon to the like 9 o'clock. So just like that. If it bothers you, you don't really need to worry about this, but like personally, I don't really like seeing kind of the wood around it. So I'm going to come over here to my crop tool. And again, if this doesn't bother you, you can skip this step. And Photoshop, the newer versions are really nice because as you can see what's going on the screen right now is it actually explains to you what that tool does. So I'm going to select it. It kind of looks like 2 squares going on top of each other. And then so when I click it, you'll see that it gets this weird kind of outline on it. And depending on where I have my mouse, it does different things. So all I'm going to do is drag it so my arrow is straight up and down. And I'll drag it in and down like that. And so you can see like it gets kind of shaded as I pull this down. The shaded areas means it's going to cut it off, just like if you were using a pair of scissors. and the part that's clear where there's the grid, that's actually the part that you're going to save. So I'm just going to bring it in. It doesn't need to be perfect, but just to kind of like bring in that, like cut off the excess that I don't really need. So that looks pretty good to me. It's not perfect, but it's all we really need to do. And then in order to apply this, so to actually cut off all these gray areas here that I don't want anymore, I'm just going to push enter or return on my keyboard, and it just cuts it all off. Okay, so now you have your sketch like actually in Photoshop. It's ready for you to use as a basis. But we don't want to work directly on top of this page, so you want to add another layer on top of it. So you can think of this as how you transfer your sketch using a light table. So you go over the light table, you have your original sketch, and then you put a paper on top of it in order to work directly on top of your drawing. This is the same idea. So if I come over here, you'll see that it says layers. So you can add as many layers as you'd like. For now, I just want you to stick with one. You have a couple options down here, but the only two that you need to care about are this one that looks like a little piece of paper with like a fold on the side. And another great thing about Photoshop, like everything, if you hover over this for a second, it'll tell you exactly what that tool does. So it's not like the second I put my mouse over it shows up. Oftentimes you need to let it sit there for just a moment, and then it'll tell you what it does. So I'm going to click this to create a new layer. And so you'll see this is my background layer and then layer number 1. If you want to zoom in, because this is a little far out for me, you have the option to click on this. So again, if I hover over it, it's the zoom tool. Or it also shows you that if you push Z on your keyboard, that's also the same thing as your zoom tool. So I'm just going to click it. I'm going to zoom in. So I'm going to start with this part of her face. And you want to make sure that your layer number 1 is selected. Because if it's highlighted, that means that's the layer that you're working on. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to go over all of my outlines here. But you'll notice that I'm still on the little zoom in tool because it's like a little magnifying glass with a plus sign. So I'm actually going to go over here and I want to use my brush tool, or you can push B on your keyboard for brush tool. So if I bring it over, you see that now there's a circle. This circle means that that's the width of the brush, which as you can see, it's pretty thick. It's going to be too thick for what I want to do. So if I go up here, oops, I guess I should explain what I just did. So if you want to undo something, if you're not happy with how something is looking, you can either press Command or Apple Z, which is undo, or you should have this little thing right here, and if I hover over it, it says history, and this will show you everything you've done. So you can see I rotated my canvas, I cropped it, everything. So everything I've ever done, I can go back and undo it. Okay, so back to where we were. So this is too thick for me. It's also the wrong color. I don't want to do my line work in white. You can if you really want to, but I'm going to suggest using a darker color. And you'll see up here that there's like a little circle with a number under it. And then when I hover over it, it says click to open brush preset picker. So if I click on that guy, I have a couple options here. So it says size or hardness. So the size will be the size of your brush. So if you want a really thick brush that is, 137 pixels, you can see that's really big. Or you can have it super tiny and have it only be like 4 pixels. I want mine a little bit bigger than that. I think I like this size. It kind of mimics the same width as the black pen that was used for this. So I'm going to stick with about 11. And then the hardness, So that is how like soft the edges of your line are going to be. So if the hardness turned all the way down, you're going to have a really fuzzy line. So just to show you what this looks like, I'll make this bigger and definitely not use white. So you can see it's really soft, has really blurry edges. But if I'm here and I turn the hardness all the way up to 100%, so that means it's really thick, you'll have really nice clean edges. So again, that's totally up to you what you want it to look like depending on who your character is, the style that you're going for. I don't like to have mine all the way up, so I'm going to keep it like more towards 100 but around 86. So again, this is where you're going to change your size and also the softness or hardness of your brush. And again, like I keep undoing things, all I'm hitting is Command Z. Okay, so I already set mine to black, but say I want it to be a different color. Down here or also over here, depending on what your workspace kind of looks like, you can either click this and change the color here, or you can change the color over here. So if you slide this up and down, that's where you're getting your like red, pink, blue, cyan, green, yellow, orange, red, blah, blah, blah. And you can drag it all around and you'll notice that this is changing right here. That means that's the color that you're going to be using. I'm going to have mine be black. Okay, so now because you have your brush setting done, you have your size, the hardness, all of that, you have your color set how you want it, and you're working on a new layer, so not your background layer. You're working on a new layer. Always, always, always work on the new layer. Then I'm going to use my drawing tablet, my Wacom tablet, and I'm just going to start tracing over the lines that I drew. So one really great thing about the Wacom tablets is it's really similar to drawing with a regular pen. The less pressure you press down on the drawing tablet with, the thinner the line is. Oop, that was bad. So again, I kind of like did a weird thing here on our chin, so I just hit Command Z to undo that, or you can always go up to your history over here and undo that way. So anyways, the harder you press, the thicker your line will be. The least pressure you put down, the thinner your line will be. So it's same as like, especially you can tell when that happens with the brush markers, and that's true with these Wacom tablets too. And same as when you're doing transferring, like I kind of want to add some of these extra textures in here so I don't lose them. And like maybe I want to add a little bit more going on here to add some more detail. I want to add this. So just like when you're transferring with a light table, you can make whatever adjustments you want. Maybe, ooh, sorry, I keep like zooming in accidentally. And so also you can zoom in as close as you want. A lot of times it's a lot easier to go over your lines the closer you're zoomed in. So I'm just going to keep tracing over. And then maybe I want to add some finer, smaller details. So I'll go up and change my brush size and just kind of shrink it down a little bit to a 3. And just add some like finer little details in. Because you're going to lose all of this like pink drawing that's behind it. And also some of like the little details that you kind of sometimes accidentally get when you are using a marker. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. Oops, sorry. No. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and zoom out. And so if I hold, there we go. And if I close these eyes, so if I close this eye, it takes away what I just did. Just like shutting an eye, you just can't see it anymore. So if I close my background layer, you can see that I have exactly what I drew. So you can open these and close these as you want, because now I'm kind of looking at this, the line work that I just did, and I feel like it looks kind of weird. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but if I close this eyeball, I might want to go in and add a little bit more like up here on the top of her head, maybe a little bit more in her eyes and her mouth, and even maybe a little bit more. I kind of like this detail that I added in her hair. So you can like open and close these eyeballs as much as you want to see what your final digital art is going to look like. All right, so now you're talking, you do all the line work. Maybe you do it just for your front view. I'm just going to suggest, because of time-wise, you only start with one view and finish an entire view first before you move on to your next ones. That way you're not like trying to do all the line work at once and all the coloring at once. Sometimes it can get kind of boring. So I like to kind of jump around a little bit, but also that's totally up to you, however you want to do it. So I have pretend I have my line work completely done. She's fully drawn. She's done an all black line. And then I want to add color. Like, what color is her hair? So I have my one layer here. That's my line work. I'm going to add another layer. So my layer number 1 is my line work. My layer number 2, my new one, is actually going to be on top of my line work. But I want the black line outline to actually be on top of my new layer. So what I can do is I can click on this and highlight it, and if I click and hold and drag, I can reorder these layers in any way I want. I can even my background layer cannot be moved unless you unlock it, but don't worry about that. So anyways, I have my line work on top, and then I have this new layer here. So that's going to be the layer that I'm going to color with. So I want her hair to be like a fiery orange, maybe a little bit redder than that. So I'm going to go with this color. Okay, so layer number 1, again, is my line work layer, but I want to work below that, underneath that. So I'm going to just use my brush tool. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger up here because I'm going to be filling in this whole area. So once I start coloring, you'll see that it's going behind my black lines, the outlines that I drew, because my layer number 2, my color layer, is behind my line work layer. But it's also on top of my background layer. So it's completely covering the pink. But it's great because it doesn't like delete anything. So even though I'm coloring it, I can always go back to like all my originals. I can literally change anything at any moment. And you can also make as many layers as you want. So I might do her hair and her clothing on one layer. And then maybe I'll do her skin tone on the next layer. And so also like maybe you don't want her hair to be fully solid orange. So I want to add some like kind of yellow highlights. So maybe I'll pick a yellow. Maybe reduce my brush size a little bit. And just add in some yellow going on here. So there's her hair. Some more up here. And so if I'm going to do her skin, I actually want to do it on another layer because that's going to make it easy because you've already framed her entire face with the hair, so you can then actually go behind it. I'm going to show you one more thing. So if I am unhappy with how this yellow came out, if I come down here, sorry, my tablet keeps doing that. And if I pull my mouse over, you'll actually see that you get like an eyedropper. So if I want to grab this orange color, all I need to do is when I open this color swatch on this side here on my toolbar, I get a little eyedropper and I can pick that orange up again. So I don't need to like try and mix that color again. So that's good if you like, I kind of realized that I missed some spots. I want to like break up some of this orange again. So I'm going to go over, or sorry, break up some of the yellow. So I'm going to go over it with some of the orange. Okay, so I'm happy with her hair, but I'm going to make another new layer. So I'm going to come over here for create a new layer. So that's my layer number 3. And my layer number 2 is her hair. But I want to drag this behind it because her hair is on top of her head. I'm going to make her skin be kind of like a teal blue because blue is the complement of orange. And I want it to be a little bit lighter, so I'm going to drag it over to the white area. And I'm going to make sure I'm on number 3. So I'm not on my outline layer. I'm not on my hair layer, but I'm on a new layer that's underneath all of those. I'm going to make my brush size a little bit bigger since I'm filling in a larger space. And I'm just going to fill it all in. So you'll see that like I can totally go over all the orange stuff, but it's not turning blue because I'm on a layer that is below or beneath the orange layer and my outline black layer. So again, you can create as many layers as you want. I'm going to show you one last thing with this extremely long video, and that's called transparency. So say I want to add some shadows under her hair, around her eyes. So I'm going to darken this a little bit. I have 2 ways that I can up the transparency. So one is up here where you have your option for your brush. I can turn it down here. So then it actually is a see-through color. Let me show you on another layer. So it's a little more see-through. So you can see I can still see the orange through it, everything. And if I layer it again, it gets darker because it's like tracing paper. The more you layer on top of it, the more opaque or less see-through it becomes. So I have an option to do that there. So if I wanted to add some shading, and you can also do color mixing with that. So say I want to add like some pink cheeks or something. I can turn it down even more. So you can see it's like mixing the pink with the blue a little bit because it's see-through. Or you can also do that with an entire layer. So if I want her hair to be kind of see-through, I'm going to select her hair layer. And then you'll see it also says opacity here. So if something is opaque, if it's 100% opaque, that means you cannot see through it. So that's like you as a human are 100% opaque, you are not clear. So it says that here, and it also says it here. So I can change that with an entire layer as well. So if I turn it down, it becomes more see-through. So you'll see that her hair is now slowly becoming see-through. Or I can leave it alone. All right, so say I am totally done. I've gone over everything. I can close my background layer. I have my fully digital little character here. Pretend she has a body and eyes and all of that. And so even if I'm in progress, like right now I'm in progress, I'm going to show you how to save to your Google Drive. All right, so first things first, you're going to go up to File, Save As. So you want to make sure you go to Save As because this is where you can change the name of your final. So that way it's not like the assignment name from Google Classroom. So if I go to Save As, I'm going to name this Character Design. And you'll see you have different formats here and also where you can save it. Personally, I like saving things to my desktop because I know exactly where it is. I can see it. It's really easy to find. And you have some options for your format. So I want you to save in a Photoshop, not PDF, but just a regular Photoshop document. So that's the one all the way at the top. The only way, so it should say character design PSD. So PSD is what you're aiming for. The only way you can retain all of your layers in that file is if you're saving it as a PSD. Most of you should be familiar with like a JPEG. If I save it as a JPEG, that's going to flatten the image, or that's going to squish all of the layers together, and you will not be able to edit your image anymore at all. So you always want to save it in a Photoshop file until you're very, very, very end, until you're completely 100% done. All right, so I made sure I changed my name to something that makes sense to me. Please also have it be something that makes sense to you and to me, because I'm going to be looking at these. And I made sure that my format is Photoshop, and you'll see that it has the layers selection saved. And I'm also saving it to my desktop. So I'm just going to click Save. And with this, you can just click OK. And then I'm going to click the little minimize arrow here. Actually, you know what? You saved this. So you can actually just quit Photoshop. So the only way to like actually close down an entire program is if you click up here and you click Quit Photoshop. Or on your keyboard, this is the shortcut, you click Command Q on your keyboard. So I'm going to do that. And it's closed out because I already saved it. So now I'm going to come over back to my internet browser, Chrome, Safari, whatever you're using. I'm going to open up my Google Drive. And then, so however you have your Google Drive organized, maybe you have a folder for my class. If you don't have one, I suggest making one just so you can keep yourself organized. I'm going to slide it over to the side here. So you may have the window expanded like this, but it's easier if you minimize it. And I'm going to find my file on my desktop. So it's the one that should be titled .psd, because that's your Photoshop file. And then I'm just going to drag it over here. You'll see you get a little plus sign. It says like drop files instantly to upload them. And I'm just going to let it go, and you'll get an uploading option. So it may take a minute because if you have multiple layers, it's going to be a large file. But eventually it'll upload and you'll have it in your drive. That way you never have to worry about it getting messed with on your computer. You can access it anywhere, at home, on a different computer, in the classroom, whatever. And that's it. So you're going to be working on these. So you'll have all 3 views hopefully done by the due date or before we strike. And you should be good to go. So if you need to like rewind or anything like that, please do that. And then check in with me if you need support.